Sukuna, knowing that he has complete control over this situation now, begins to claim that he is going to eradicate everybody here, and then he will eradicate every player in the culling game, and after, he will go for Tengen. But as he says this, the ground beneath him explodes, and Yuta arrives onto the battlefield, apologizing to everybody for being so late. And as Yuta follows up midair to Sukuna, Sukuna responds in kind by enhancing 2 of his fingers and deflecting Yuta's attacks. He taunts Yuta by telling him to do not forget to struggle and resist, as if Yuta doesn't kill him here, the ones you want to protect will all die. And this forces Rika to come out and attempt to crush Sukuna, asking him who the hell he thinks he's speaking to. And Sukuna says, "Here's the queen," with the chapter ending. The flashback concludes and we're finally back in the present day. We see Yuta still standing over Sukuna with Rika behind Sukuna, and as Sukuna regenerates his hand, Yuta's able to see that Sukuna's reverse curse technique is starting to recover, and by proxy, his domain. It's only just a matter of time. I do think Sukuna will get his domain here, and Yuji will be the one he uses it on, because I really gotta see Yuji just walk through a rain of Sukuna slashes again. Like, that's still the best panel in the series. Focusing on the fight again, Yuta states that Higuruma was taken out due to him not being present to help everybody, and if he were there to help everybody, he would have been able to ensure the success of the Executioner's Blade plan. Wouldn't it have been okay if Maki was the one to catch Kenjaku with the surprise attack? But Yuta decides to dismiss these thoughts, saying that Rika was necessary to stop the outbreak of cursed spirits that came from Kenjaku's body, which in my opinion is absolutely correct. About Maki at this point, I'm almost convinced that she's with Hakari, waiting for Uraume to exhaust herself before sneaking her with the soul-splitting blade. I believe this is the plan because in events such as this, I just don't think Jujutsu Tech would send Hakari alone against Uraume and all of these sorcerers against Sukuna and Takaba and Yuta to fight Kenjaku. I just don't think they disperse their forces in that manner, and they know good and well that Uraume is a huge threat. I know the Hakari fans are going to hate me for saying this, guys. I know he's strong, but that's just not strategic in my opinion. I think he's been chosen to fight against Uraume alone to remove her from the battlefield and then whittle her stamina down with his Terminator-like fighting style. And then Maki will come in when they can just jump Uraume and call it a day. After that, they'll come to help everybody else against Sukuna. That just makes the most sense to me. We come back to Yuta and the fight begins. Rika comes in between Yuta and Sukuna, and Yuta attempts to catch Sukuna off guard by piercing his sword through Sukuna, through Rika's manifestation cloak, which served to halt Sukuna's vision. But Sukuna, displaying his reaction time, grabs onto the blade with ease, or so it seems. What Sukuna actually does here is manipulate his slashes so efficiently that he can use them to surround the inside of his hand that is supposedly grabbing onto Yuta's blade, and quote unquote hold the blade with all the slashes that are going on around it. I think that really needs to be pointed out because that is an ingenious defense mechanism and pretty cool. I really think it's broken. It's sort of like Infinity, but not really, since Infinity is space manipulation, which is just a billion times more potent than slashes you can force your way through. That's something Yuji would do. As Yuta realizes this, he lets go of the katana and Rika rushes towards Sukuna, but Sukuna is able to punch her without even looking at her. Meanwhile, Yuta is able to punch his second stomach to stop it from chanting, and Yuta then grabs the katana again and slashes at Sukuna's head, to which Sukuna is able to dodge by ducking. But Rika follows up with some big old metal thing from the rooftop and throws it at Sukuna, but Sukuna is able to slash it into pieces, and then both Yuta and Rika follow up for another attack, but at the same time. But Yuta's attack is parried by a cleave from Sukuna, which ends up cutting his face a bit, and Rika's punch was blocked by 2 of his other arms. I have to say the fight choreography here is crazy. When's the last time we've seen Yuta and Rika just really go at it against one person for this long? As we focus on Yuta's thoughts once more, he states that these are all excuses. Since he wanted to defeat Kenjaku with his own hands, he's brought upon this situation, and everything going wrong is his fault. I'll get into this a little bit later, but he decides to take responsibility and activate his domain expansion. True love. As we see this domain, we see that there are multiple marriage bows, blades, and crosses everywhere. It's as Soul Eater as it gets, and if Yuta wasn't already a Soul Eater character at this point, he's now using the infinite one sword style. I believe the crosses are supposed to be a symbol of undying love, and the marriage bows are the same. As for the swords, well, Sukuna activates Hollow Wicker Basket, the simple domain technique of the Heian era, and I saw a couple of people saying that he copied this from Kashimo. First of all, how? Second, are we serious? Yuta grabs one of his hundreds of blades and swings it towards Sukuna, and Sukuna stops it easily with his slashes, or so we thought. We see that through this blade, then Icebreaker was activated, manipulating space and bypassing his infinite slash defense. And as the dust settles, Yuta claims that he will conclude everything within this domain, and as we know from Hakari, Yuta's word is no joke. Sukuna gets up from the attack and says that he sees that this is part of their plan. From Megumi's memories, he knows that Yuta is the child who can possess cursed spirits and has the technique of copy. I have to ask though, how did he not know this from Yuji's memory? I guess you can say he didn't know that Yuta had copy, but there's no way he found out about Rika through Megumi's memories. Come on now. Sukuna then continues to speak, stating that the short hit curse technique of this domain is forcing him to always use Hollow Wicker Basket as a counter, but this forces him to use his extra arms and mount the cast, so it basically removes all of his enhancements. Not only that, he's also attacking with the unlimited uses of the curse technique copy, that only activates within this domain. By this, I think he means that Yuta can use copy to no end inside of the domain. And lastly, Yuji Itadori is within this domain as well. The brat strikes that can grab the soul in order to tear apart the bodies of his and Megumi's. Sukuna smirks and says, "You finally have a role to play, huh?" And as the new and old protagonists finally fight together for the first time, the chapter ends. So we now enter the chapter with Yuta posing real clean. You know, when a chapter begins giving you the entire description of a character's ability, we're gonna see some crazy hands. And as Yuta steals himself, the narrator explains to us that Yuta's domain allows him to choose any of the abilities that he's copied to imbue the barrier with as the domain's sure hit effect. And then, his remaining copied abilities are scattered randomly amongst the katanas within his domain. But only Okkotsu can use these blades. And even then, not even he's aware which technique is inside of each individual katana until he grabs it. Lastly, each katana can only be used once, but their number is infinite. If you peep my previous videos, you'd see that I had a theory of Yuji's soul splitting being a part of his curse technique, and that Yuta was going to copy Yuji's technique and spread it across all of his swords and have himself, Ino, Kusakabe, and Yuji jump Sukuna with soul splitting attacks. However, we all know that Gege Akutami watches my content and hates me more than any other JJK YouTuber, so of course he debunked this video before it was even up for a week. Oh yeah, you guys leave your predictions down below as to what you believe Yuta has imbued the domain with. I think that is sky manipulation, judging from everything that happened in this chapter, but I see people saying that he's going to use Hollow Purple with this domain, so I'm unsure as to whether or not I'm interpreting this sure hit correctly. Once we get Yuta's ability description, the blade that he's currently holding is imbued with Dru's curse technique, and they shoot towards Sukuna, wrapping him with the domain that they use to allow Yuji to get a strike in. In case you forgot, Dru's technique is to send Shikigami that wrap around their target and create a domain around the path that they travel. If their target steps out of that domain, they get cut up, so they have to remain within the path that the Shikigami created if they don't want to get hit by this technique. Think of it like the sea bear protection ring from SpongeBob, where if they stepped outside of it they got mauled. Although I do believe that once it hits you once, the ability is over. This could be something that could bypass the Limitless. If you remember, Drew did conquer an entire era single-handedly with this technique. Once Sukuna does get struck by Yuji, he shows that he does feel it a bit due to Yuji's ability, but he doesn't have time to focus on that, as Rika's coming in straight from above. Rika is easily dodged, but Sukuna steps outside of the domain created by the Shikigami and gets cut up due to not understanding Drew's ability, but he figures it out at that moment. We then see Yuta flying upside down from the sky, so we already know that he's using sky manipulation. And as the two prepare their next actions, Sukuna begins to explain to us that since Gojo's exhausted him, he can't use his domain and his reverse curse technique is nerfed. And at this point, his curse energy matches Yuta. If you remember in 225, Yuta states that Sukuna at his full capacity has 2 times his curse energy, or even more than that. So right now, Sukuna has less than half of his curse energy. On top of all these factors, being stuck in a domain renders him unable to chant or just one-shot Yuta with the world-cutting dismantle, since he has to focus on using Hollow Wicker Basket. And lastly, before Sukuna can even tell us, we see Rika preparing to beam Yuji like a missile toward him. And Lord, we know they're gonna go insane with that scene when it's animated. And Sukuna puts his attention toward Yuji, but Yuta takes that chance to attempt an attack. But Sukuna being Sukuna, parries them both, and he continues. saying that it's the same logic behind his attacks when he fought Mahito. He's able to sense the soul and attack it directly, but in this instance, he aims for what connects both Sukuna and Megami's souls, the barrier that lies in between them, and by striking this, he disrupts their connection and weakens it, and the more this connection is weakened, the more that Sukuna's curse energy output and his control over Megami's body drops. Under these circumstances, all they have to do is keep attacking until he can't use his anti-domain technique, and then they can activate Angel's curse technique, Jacob's ladder, in order to complete the job. And I've got to say, I love this whole Sukuna versus everybody fight here. Genuinely just amazing stuff. We see that Yuji's holding on to Sukuna to restrict him as Yuta attempts to attack. And as this happens, Sukuna begins to cleave through Yuji's body, and you can really see on Yuji's face that he does not want to experience that again. But before it can fully cut through him, Yuta grabs another blade and manages to roll Inumaki's cursed speech, telling Sukuna to not move. Someone asked me why Yuta could do this, and remember, in terms of total curse energy, Yuta and Sukuna are around the same level currently, so it does allow him to hit Sukuna with this with no repercussions. And as Sukuna is stunned, Yuta grabs another blade and rolls Thin Icebreaker. This attack sends Sukuna flying, and Rika wastes no time following up with a punch, giving him the karma that he's owed from using Agito against Gojo. But unlike Agito, she doesn't stop with just a punch. She clasps both of her hands and gives Sukuna a good old jackhammer downward, with our two MCs wasting no time to follow up. And as Sukuna comes out of this rubble, he launches hella dismantles towards our boys, and there's nothing they can do but block. But Rika's just on it again. But Sukuna has clearly had enough of the queen, and catches her punch this time around, and sends a mean roundhouse to the face. And even then, she still pushes forward with that punch. And Sukuna tries to create more space, but he begins to think once more, and pay close attention to this. Sukuna points out that if he does not make direct contact, he won't just be able to instantly delete our heroes, just as he was with Ryu Ishigori. And I think Ryu being used as a reference here is significant, because a lot of people thought old boy was just weak, but Sukuna has found his output to be noteworthy. Sukuna makes it clear that Yuta and Yuji do not surpass Ryu in toughness. This leads us into the reasons he's unable to one-shot them like he could with Ryu. His output being lowered from Gojo, the team of sorcerers' tight defense, their abilities to heal, and not to mention the domain itself only focusing on Sukuna. Shout out Yuta, because this seems to be a huge feat of sorcery judging by how Sukuna questions this feat. He goes on to ask our boys, what have they done this month? And they give polarizing answers, with Yuji saying hard work and Yuta saying we cheated. No wonder you got replaced, buddy. Yuta also goes on to say that if it weren't for Gojo's efforts, Sukuna would have annihilated them instantly. And Yuji basically says that they have a long road up ahead because he won't be losing to Sukuna. With Sukuna making it clear that they're not as tough as Ryu was, that he has half of his curse energy, and Yuji's attacks disrupting his curse energy output and control over Megami's body, and all of the other nerfs, Sukuna could quite possibly be at 10 fingers of power as we speak. He is extremely nerfed in this battle against these two. I think that needs to be made clear, and even then it still feels neck and neck. I've been wondering why he wasn't throwing out them skyscraper world cutting dismantles like he did against Kashimo. This chapter tells us why. And even against Kashimo, he wasn't at full strength. Sukuna is a monster. I wanted to point this out because a lot of people were saying that I'm overrating Yuta, when in reality, I just don't think Yuta's a bum that's going to get dropped in 3 chapters, and Sukuna being this weakened, I think does kind of prove my case. Characters in Jujutsu Kaisen are way stronger when they're jumping people instead of working alone as well, so I think Yuta really has a good chance here. As round 2 begins, Rika dashes towards Sukuna with Yuji taking the other side. Yuta, seeing this, takes the opportunity for a frontal strike, and then we see it, boys. You guys know I've been asking about Charles since like chapter 244, and we finally get our answer. Yuta has stolen the ability from Charles and wastes no time using clairvoyance to bop Sukuna and punch him from the side, and we then see Charles for the first time in like a year. We haven't seen this guy in Daido, Mio, characters like that for a while, so it's nice to see one of them. After this, Yuji wastes no time in synchronizing an attack with Rika to Sukuna, and if you pay close enough attention, he does a double open palm strike exactly like Gojo did to Maharaga in 233. I just found that pretty cool, and we cut to Sukuna's thoughts once more. He lists all of Yuta's abilities and asks if Yuta can use the Limitless, but he dismisses this, saying that since he doesn't have the 6 eyes, he can't use it anyways, so he doubt that he has it. And then we pair into Yuta's thoughts, with him saying that Sukuna will be caught off guard by a technique that he has not used yet, and so he grabs another blade and claims that this is the one. Yuta uses sky manipulation with one blade in his hand to block Sukuna's vision, and then he stabs through the sky manipulation with another, to which Sukuna catches, and it's at that moment Yuta uses cleave. And as Sukuna realizes what just happened, the chapter ends. As Yuta has rained Sukuna's own trademark technique upon him, Sukuna wonders as to how Yuta was able to use cleave against him. This does imply that Sukuna has figured out Yuta's condition to copy curse techniques, because he wouldn't be asking this if he didn't know how Yuta could copy curse techniques in the first place. Yuta says that you weren't able to get that last finger of yours, right? And with Yuji delivering a thunderous punch to Sukuna's face, he says, "I see, wipe the meal." Yuta's conditions to copy techniques weren't ever really made clear, so I wasn't going to really assume, and I was going to wait for it to just be outright revealed. But I think with Sukuna saying this, we can say that Rika must be the one to eat something from the user of the technique that Yuta wants, kind of like Genya from Demon Slayer. I say Rika since she's the one who holds the cursed techniques and all of the other stuff. After this was confirmed, Yuta delivers a palm strike to Sukuna's stomach. This in intention to dispel his hollow wicker basket and allow the sure hit of the domain to activate. And after, Yuji grabs Sukuna's head and knees it with no hesitation. If you look hard enough, you'd see that Yuji's hand was normal when he grabbed Sukuna's head, and then the claws came out once the blow connected. Wonder what that's about. Sukuna gives Yuji the little bro chokehold and delivers another cleave to his stomach. Why Sukuna keeps delivering that technique and that style to Yuji, who knows, and I could be overanalyzing this, but Yuji has displayed signs earlier that he's afraid of this specific attack, and Sukuna hating Yuji as much as he does is likely aware of this. With Yuji coughing up tons of blood from having another hole put in his stomach, he spits it right in Sukuna's face, and Yuta wastes no time in attempting to deliver an uppercut to his face, and it goes through. As we know that something as simple as pain can't keep Yuji down, he lays on the ground saying that this is his last chance. He needs to bring down Sukuna and save Megumi here and now. There is no time to rest. Heal, heal, heal. Whereas Sukuna is saying that his outputting control over his body, they're both weakening bit by bit. And Sukuna's just massively nerfed here. I mean, bro has been fighting for 25 chapters straight, so this is reasonable. Rika grabs Sukuna by the leg and tosses him, and Yuji with insane precision lands a manji kick right in his face. I don't know how or even why he chose to do the manji kick in the first place, but there it is. And Sukuna with his insane endurance maintains the hollow wicker basket even during this moment. But then we see it. Sukuna decides to release the hollow wicker basket in order to attempt a world-cutting dismantle. But our heroes seen this coming and they move to restrict him. We see that Yuji has one of Sukuna's arms, whereas Rika has the other two, and Yuta goes in for a punch, landing it directly in Sukuna's second mouth. Or was it truly a punch? Nope. We look closer and see that Yuta had went for Sukuna's tongue and ripped it out. This fight may just be the most brutal we've seen, and I'm glad it's the two people who deserve to get at Sukuna the most, doing all of this to him. Sukuna retaliates, but raises his hand, slashing Yuta's eye, and this causes him to drop the tongue that he just ripped out. But Yuta's so locked in that he continues to run forward towards Sukuna, saying that he wasn't able to use the dismantle while using hollow wicker basket due to requiring his chants or hand signs or even both to activate the technique. I won't allow him to do either. I wonder how he did it against Gojo then, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get that scene in the future. Sukuna throws more slashes towards Yuta's way, and Yuta says that these slashes are only getting weaker, and due to this, he has nothing to fear, even if he decided to get up close. Yuta goes in for a slash, and as Sukuna is about to react to it, from within his mask, blood bursts, and we see why. Sukuna points out that the blood that Yuji spat in his face earlier exploded, due to him most likely using Choso's signature technique, Supernova. But this raises a big question about the blood manipulation users. Yuji is using this technique, that's no problem, as he is Choso's brother and has likely consumed the other wombs, but the problem lies within Kamo, as he was implied to be the one that told Yuji most of the techniques that he knows over the time skip and was his primary teacher when it came to blood manipulation. Yuji says that Kamo was a much better teacher because Choso couldn't really teach him anything. This likely means that Kamo knows Supernova, or at least figured out how it works. After this massive reveal, we go into a flashback, and Yuji explains some of the contents of Yuki's book, which says that, even on a general level, no matter how much souls are mixed, they'll never become one. Choso asks if Yuji and Sukuna were a special case because he can't feel a single ounce of the soul that was once in Choso's body. However, it's confirmed that the souls of the incarnated sorcerers still remain dormant, with it being said that it's only because of the massive gap of energy between objects and sorcerers. No matter how deep a soul may sink, they'll never disappear or become one with another. So Mahito fans, you guys have won. The incarnated sorcerers of the Culling Games or other methods do not recognize the second soul in their bodies, and by proxy, do not have the innate ability to directly strike the soul. So it wouldn't be a similar case to Yuji in terms of defense if Mahito were to be matched up against them. Choso points out that if Megumi is an exception to the rule, then there will be trouble with the plan, but Yuji brings up Mahito's idol transfiguration, saying that as long as something like that isn't within Sukuna's arsenal, then Megumi's soul shouldn't be able to merge with Sukuna. Even then, Yuki knew about Mahito's existence and his technique, and if she didn't bother mentioning him in that book, they should be fine. Yuji says that he believes Yuki's words, and since this is Jujutsu Kaisen, she could still be wrong. However, I don't think she is. Hana brings up that her technique would still be useful for saving Megumi because she's able to eradicate Sukuna. Sukuna's incarnation is a direct mix of his technique, personality, and cursed object. This allows Jacob's Ladder to do direct damage on him, but since cursed techniques are connected to the brain, which is obviously a part of the body, this would also eliminate Megumi if he were to be hit by it, as him and Sukuna are sharing the same body. So if they can separate the two souls and weaken the connection between Sukuna's fingers and Megumi's body, Megumi would more than likely survive Jacob's Ladder. And with that, we see Yuji and team holding Sukuna in place with everything prepared, and Yuta raises his hand. Judgment has been cast upon Sukuna, and we witness Jacob's Ladder. As this technique burns him to a crisp, Yuta pierces his arm as well just to add a little bit of damage, and Yuji reaches Sukuna and prepares a fist, telling Megumi to wake up. As he strikes him, we see the composition of the soul. It's then said that from their perspective, it's almost as if their plan had no flaws, but Sukuna seems to have broken Megumi's soul far beyond repair. After witnessing his sister's death and Gojo's defeat, he states that he's had enough, and we're told that within Megumi's soul, any will to live has left them a long time ago. Scale of Dragon, Recoil, Twin Meteors, and it hits. The world-cutting dismantle slices through Yuji, Yuta, and Rika, and we see Sukuna stand over our heroes as the domain falls around him. But this is a very common strategy amongst Jujutsu sorcerers, a mediocre plan that Sukuna should have and normally could have avoided with ease. A surprise attack landed on the sorcerer who believed they won, and with that, Maki enters the scene. The chapter ends.